also have worked with companies looking at some of these seed coat treatments, trying to test their efficacy in field settings as well as looking in greenhouse settings. So depending on the stage of product development, we're looking at that. We have a project that's funded by the USDA that's really at the fundamental biological level, where we're using electron microscopy to try to map out how the nematode is feeding. So we're looking at the individual cells in the nematode's esophagus to understand, okay, how does it know how to start to feed? So we've got projects at sort of all these various levels. One area that we're starting to look into more is outside of soybean cyst nematodes. So SCN is just one of thousands of nematodes that we find in Illinois soil. So many nematodes are not parasitic. They're probably good for overall soil health. And then among the parasitic ones, there are ones that are not cyst nematodes. Oftentimes in the press, they get referred to as corn nematodes to distinguish them from SCN. So there's a whole bunch that do like corn, but they will also feed on soybeans. So there's a group called lesion nematodes, which is in Illinois, we've got about 8 species of these. We know they feed on corn, absolutely, they like them, they can cause yield loss. But there's studies that are probably now 20, 30 years old, actually from Illinois, showing that some of these species can cause pathogenicity on soybeans. We know a lot less about these, how common they are. One area that I'm interested in with these is because they have such a large host range, there's been an increased interest in cover crops. So something like a rye cover crop, which they can also feed on. So now you've got corn, you've now extended the period of time when you have a host in the field, they can feed on rye, and now you go into soybeans where they're also happy. So are we going to see more of an issue with a pest like lesion nematode is something that I'm really interested in looking at in the future. And so we've started a couple of small projects on that. I think the thing to emphasize is that parasitic nematodes in general are really sort of insidious creatures. They rarely cause fatality. I mean, and that's true whether you're talking about plant parasites or animal parasitic nematodes. So animal parasitic nematodes, we don't typically think of them a lot for humans. We've gotten rid of most of them in the US. They rarely kill the host, and it's in the nematode's best interest to not kill the host. And that's true with plant parasites. They don't kill it. Above ground symptoms are either nondescript or they're not even there. So you can get yield loss with soybean cyst nematode, and above ground the plants look fine, right? And so it's tricky for the farmers to know whether they have a problem or not, because they may go out in the middle of July and they're looking at their soybeans and, oh, they've got a great stand, everything looks good. Well, their yields may not be what they could be at the end of the season because of SCN. So you're not getting above ground symptoms. You need to look below ground. You need to do sampling. They're microscopic, so you can't just, let's say, pull up a few plants and just, see, oh, here's some obvious below ground symptoms. So you really need to do sample, you need to do testing.